Hey drivers, Alan Smith here again from AskTheTrucker.com. We've had an exciting past week. This week we had one of the biggest surges of drivers calling up their representatives to say no to the Denham Amendment in H.R. 4, which of course is a 2018 FAA Reauthorization Bill. More than ever, drivers are realizing the seriousness of this amendment, which has been lobbied hard by the ATA against professional drivers and their wages. Now, I've made a series of videos and I've written 25 articles or so on AskTheTrucker.com explaining the details of how and why the Denham Amendment was able to get slipped into federal bills, so I'll try to keep this short. Basically, the ATA doesn't like the idea that certain states have labor laws which require their members, the motor carriers, to pay drivers for all time work such as detention time. Now, these states also assert that carriers have to offer their drivers a 10-minute paid rest break after 4 or 5 hours and a non-paid 30-minute meal break. Now, drivers aren't forced to take these breaks, but motor carriers still have to allow and pay drivers for them. But make no mistake, it's not the meal and rest break the carriers are so upset about. It's the fact that these states require them to also pay drivers for all their time worked, such as waiting time. And of course, carriers don't want to do this. So here's the bottom line of the Denham Amendment. Carriers have been sued in courts for not paying drivers for all their time while they've driven in these states that have labor laws, and the carriers have lost. What was their argument in court? Carriers and the ATA claim that the federal government, not individual states, have the power to regulate interstate commerce. They based this on the 1994 FAA bill. The problem is, when they used this argument in court, they lost all the way up to the Supreme Court. That's because the court stated that state labor laws do not interfere with the regulation of freight. They are instead decades-old labor laws which protect employees from being exploited, especially employees who are paid piecework wages like most drivers who are paid by CPM. So after losing so many times in court, the motor carriers decided to lobby Congress and amend the 1994 FAA bill, which would then have federal law preempt state labor laws. Now let that sink in for a minute. Federal law overriding state labor laws. State laws which protect truckers, ensuring they are paid for all time worked. In other words, the ATA wants new federal law so motor carriers only have to legally pay drivers for their miles driven, no matter how many hours that they work. So now I ask you, do you really want the federal government interfering and enacting more laws for you, the drivers, especially when it comes to your own personal wages? Now, I know a lot of you are upset because the House just passed the Denham Amendment in their version of the FAA Reauthorization Bill, but don't be. We actually expected it. But know this, all of your phone calls paid off. This time, the amendment passed with a narrower margin than it has ever previously passed before. And that only means one thing, that all of your efforts and phone calls are working. And those very same efforts and calls now have to be directed to the Senate, because the Senate also has the Denham language in the bill. We have an excellent chance, I believe, at putting this amendment to rest in the final FAA Reauthorization Bill. It's going to take more work, it's going to take more understanding of this amendment, and more sharing this information with others, and most of all, more calls now directed to your senators. Now, believe me, the ATA will be lobbying hard and furious to the Senate to get this passed. But drivers, think about it. We are 3.5 million strong. We may not be able to lobby and line their pockets with cash like the ATA, but we can vote them out of office in the upcoming November re-elections if they choose to ignore our calls to vote no on the Denham Amendment. And by the way, do you know how your congressman or congresswoman voted in the House Denham vote on April 26th? If you need to find out, there's a link on AskTheTrucker.com article that starts with "Truckers claim small victory for Denham Amendment." Now, if they voted with the ATA for this amendment, I would suggest giving them a call and let them know that they just lost your vote in the midterms. That's exactly what Donna and I have already done. Now listen, I've been in this game a long time. I know truckers are tough. I know truckers are fighters. So let's fight. I believe the Denham Amendment is a direct assault against drivers and their future ability to negotiate wages. Do not stand aside and let this right be taken away by a few fractured empty suits over at the ATA. Start calling your senators now and tell them to vote no on the Denham Amendment within the H.R. 4, and keep calling up to the day the vote arrives on the Senate floor. You got to stay strong, drivers. Keep informed and stay united. Share this video and as much information with others. If we continue to get the word out to even more drivers, keep calling our senators, we can defeat the Denham Amendment in the Senate and in the final FAA Reauthorization Bill. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/AskTheTrucker. We're always updating the progress of the Denham Amendment, and you're always invited, of course, to visit AskTheTrucker.com for additional information and articles there also. Let's fight together on this, drivers, and let's kill the Denham Amendment once and for all. Good luck, everyone, and I'm going to be talking to you soon.